So let's just give it a minute to see if the stream works.
Okay.
Um, Welcome everyone to the third episode of the Indus podcast series around how do you go about completing the transition to the cloud. So today we are going to talk about how do you simplify data validation with the data transition validation tool. So we have Abhay here who will take us through the presentation. Abhay, if I can ask you to quickly introduce yourself and take it away, please.
Yes. So hi everyone. My name is Abhya. So I work in the cloud lifecycle engineering area as a product manager. So I'm responsible for customer engagement activities and rollouts, roll-ins, basically all the product management activities for DTV and many other different tools within cloud lifecycle engineering area.
Yeah, I think you should please go ahead and run through the presentation, please.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, Mukesh. Then let me start. So, a very warm welcome from my side as well. So, today we will be talking about data transition validation tool. And let me start with, so before we go deep dive into data transition validation, let me just quickly go through SAP Business Transformation Center solution here. So here you can see agent-led tool chain and SAP Business Transformation Center in the center here. And here we have transformation approach finder, which is basically AI and data-driven customer-specific transition recommendation. And after that, digital blueprint and data preparation. You can also find Rise with SAP Transition Workbench along with the different options that is been provided to customer for the transferring of the data from the source to the target. And then we have DTV, which is data transition validation, which is the SAP standard tool for data validation, and that can be used here for basically comparing the data before and after system migration. Yeah, so then I will move on to the next slide. And from here onwards, we will focus on DTV, which is data transition validation. Okay, so starting with what is data transition validation tool? So basically, it is a data comparison tool from SAP, which can be used in many different transition scenarios, starting from system conversion. It can also be used in lean STT using BTC, and the tool is also useful during SAP S/4HANA upgrades. So out of the box, the tool at this moment supports three different transition scenarios, and we have a teaser video that you can watch whenever you have time. Along with that, we also have mentioned DTV learning journey. This is a very comprehensive learning journey about DTV. So if you go through that, you will basically understand end to end about DTV and also will be able to configure DTV on your own. Coming to the next slide. So here, what I'm trying to explain is the features and benefits of using data transition validation tool. So starting with the technology and integration, basically this is a ABAP-based tool, which means if you are familiar with ABAP screens, it will be very easy for you to operate the tool, and it is part of the SAP basis component. Coming to the installation and content, so it is very easy to install TCI based installation, TCI and SAP Note based installation, which is very easy and simple, which means within minutes you can install DTV tool in your system, and it comes with pre-delivered content, which means as soon as you install the tool will bring the pre-delivered content, which is nothing but combination of SAP reports and transactions. Those can be validated using the tool. It has a very highly intuitive user interface, easy to use tool, and it is SAP standard tool. Of course, it is SAP security compliant. Coming to the benefits, instead of you using any manual comparison methods or any third-party tool, DTV provides a reliable mechanism to compare huge amount of business data validation. Validation support for SAP reports and transactions are supported, which are part of the pre-delivered content. And along with that, custom reports and custom namespace reports can also be validated using the tool. Starting DTV 1.4, we also have supported transparent table comparison, which means transparent table can now be compared using the DTV tool. And the tool helps in downtime reduction, which means it can really eliminate the manual spot check activities, and the comparison can be done automatically by the tool. It is easy to use self-service tool, and it comes with no additional cost, which means if you have SAP standard license, you can use it. There is no restriction with the number of users. As many as users you want, you can create and start using the DTV tool. So this is about the features and benefits of using data transition validation tool. Okay, so now let's talk about how do you use this tool during lean SDT scenario. So basically, DTV supports three different scenarios by default, but in this session, we will focus on how DTV can be used specifically in lean SDT using BTC scenario. Okay, so the first step is follow the steps from SAP Business Transformation Center and create digital blueprint. And here you define the scope of the transformation and create a transformation model. So basically a BTC related step, and you follow this and create the digital blueprint. Go ahead, create a cycle, and while creating the cycle, here you have the option to choose DTV as the validation tool. So please select the option to use DTV as the validation tool. Then the next step would be creating the data extraction or the first snapshot in the source system, which will be the ECC system. And when we do it, when system after the ramp down phase, which means the users are logged off, reconciliation jobs are done, especially nothing is happening in the system. Yeah, so that time the first data extraction for the reports we do. Then you perform transformation readiness activities and data transformation in the cycle, again a BTC related activity. Once done, you can go with SFIN conversion as part of the selective data transformation. Then once S/4HANA system is available, you can do a data extraction for the second time in the target system for the same set of reports, transactions, or tables. Then you can continue with a post-conversion activities based on the cutover plan. So this is the step-by-step process how to use DTV in lean selective data transition scenario. Yeah, so here again, we are explaining how you can use DTV tool. This is very standard process that we follow for each and every scenario. So the previous slide was specifically about lean SDT scenario, but here we are explaining how DTV in general can be used. Okay, so starting with sign off test specification here, what we mean is you first define the scope, like what are the reports and SAP reports, transactions, and customer Z reports you would like to validate. So sign off the test specification. Once done, you can go ahead with user setup, project setup, maintain test specification, etc. Then you can advanced test specification, custom coding part, then extract the data from the source system. Then you can go ahead with system conversion or SAP S/4HANA upgrade or your lean SDT procedure. Then extract the data from the target system. Then the data evaluation happens in the target system. Finally, the results will be displayed. So this is the step that the user or the end user need to perform. Then finally, customer can verify and they can go for go live. One important point which I would like to highlight here is execution cycle. So for every project, there would be several execution cycles. So we would recommend every customer to use DTV in each and every cycle. First of all, to understand the amount of data they have and the amount of time it takes to extract, for example, to get the optimum result in the productive run cycle. So each and every cycle would help the user and the customer to understand how much data they are extracting, how it is affecting the performance, and if they need to improve the performance, what they need to do, for example. So all these things need to be taken care in each and every cycle to understand and get the optimum result in the productive run cycle, since DTV basically used in a very, very crucial time, cutover time of the project phase. So with that, I move on to the next slide. And here we are talking about some of the best practices that needs to be followed during DTV implementation. So there are many points here. I may not go through each and every all the aspect of it, but I would like to highlight that in each and every phase, there are some or other best practices that needs to be taken care. So, for example, in the project planning phase, it is very important to understand for the user that what are the reports that can be validated using DTV, whether it is reports or tables or custom reports that you would like to validate. So understanding the scope is very important during the planning phase. Coming to the system preparation phase, so there are many activities which needs to be taken care, such as maintaining optimal background jobs, for example, ensuring that you implement all the DTV related SAP notes. So these are some of the points we have explained, and all the details have been explained in this blog post, and this is always up to date. So we keep adding new best practices if at all there are any, so that will be easy for you during the implementation. Accordingly, during DTV configuration, number of activities needs to be taken care, and also there are some best practices needs to be followed during the DTV execution time as well. Okay, so with that, I will start the demo, and yeah. Okay, so consider this is your ECC system or your source system. So here DTV is already installed. Now I will hit the transaction DTV. And this is the landing page of DTV. And here you can see that a project has already been created, but there are a number of options to create a project. So the first step in DTV is basically to create a project, and that can be done using this button. For example, you also have a button here, as well as if you already have a project created, that can also be copied. Most importantly, we also have a functionality called export and import, which means once a project is created and configured, that can be exported and imported to a subsequent cycle. So in real life scenario, this helps a lot to save a lot of time. So what happens is, one of the cycle, if you configure a project and all your information are up to date, you can simply export the project from one system to the subsequent system, and there you really need not configure anything. You simply run, or you simply extract the records for your reports, for example. So yeah, so the first step is creating the project. Here I have already created a project, so I'll just click on display here. So here you can see the project has been created, and it comes with 9 different steps, and many of it we do first in the source system, and some of it needs to be done in the target system. So let me start with the first step, which is maintain system. So here what we do basically is we provide the source and the target system information. And here, this are basically the placeholder. The name can be anything. You can give source and target, you can give A and B, nothing matters. So you just provide a name. However, you need to select the system role. For ECC or for the source system, we select it as source. And for the target system, the system role will be receiver. So just to mention here, since we will move the data from the source to the target, means the DTV extracted records in the source system will be moved to the target system. That's why the system role for the target system is receiver here. And you also have the possibility to provide the executing server, executing group name, etc. here. So at this in this screen, you don't see anything, since we have one application server, and by default DTV recognizes that and taking that information. However, if you have multiple application server, you can define the executing server here. So this is the first step where we go ahead and define the source and target system information. And if you don't want to keep the S/4HANA target system information now, you can keep it later also, not a problem. Coming back to the step, and directly I will go to the pre-delivered content step. So as I said earlier, that whenever you install DTV, the tool will also bring the pre-delivered content. Yeah, so pre-delivered contents are nothing but SAP reports and transactions that come along with the tool. Now, uh, yeah, so so here you can see that we have SAP reports. If I open here, so here you can see for example, accounting, we have some reports which are available here. For financial accounting, we have some reports available here. So these are nothing but SAP reports and transactions that are supported by DTV and comes along with the tool. And for all of this, validation can be done. Important point here is that we keep updating the pre-delivered content, which means you if at all new pre-delivered content is available, the user can simply import the XML file, which will be available in the form of a SAP note, and they can simply import that XML. And here the newly supported SAP reports will be available. So at this moment, 70 plus SAP reports from different functional areas, which you can see here, are available. And along with that, if any new addition happens, we release a SAP note, and that note needs to be imported to get the newly added reports here. Once you finalize your scope, which means you select the scope, you can select all the reports or the reports that you need, and you need to simply click on import specification. With that, what happens is this selected reports will actually now appear in the test specification area. So initially defined test specification will be empty. Once you select the SAP reports from the pre-delivered content, they will appear here. So here I have already imported many SAP reports. Those are available here. Along with the pre-delivered content, as I mentioned earlier, that DTV also support validation of Z report. So I have already added here one Z report. Customer can add as many as Z reports they want using this function or this this button here. So you have to provide object type, object name, and some more information about a moment. Yeah. So you can add as many as G reports you would like to provide. So we also have a functionality called add multiple. So using this functionality, you can add multiple Z reports to this particular test specification area. Along with that, table comparison is also possible. So here in this tab, we have the option to add tables, and transparent table comparison is at this moment possible. So transparent table of SAP and custom types can be validated. So you can add the tables as well. So this is how basically you define the scope, which means you define the reports, SAP reports, Z reports, or the tables that you would like to validate using the DTV tool. Now, once you define the scope, the next step is basically to define the parameters for this for each and every report. Now you can imagine this particular step where we are adding parameter is nothing but when we add parameters in SE38 and execute the report. So you can just imagine the situation, how we do something similar we are trying to do here using DTV. So for example, for RF item GL, I have to extract records for this particular report. I need to provide number of condition or parameter here. So that is what we will do. So how DTV does it is basically with a split parameter. if I click on this, so these are the different split parameter which are available. So again, split parameter, some of it comes along with DTB tool. As soon as you install, as soon as you add a SAP report, split parameters will some default split parameters will be available that you can use, but you also have the possibility to create your own split parameter. You can also use conditions, for example, if at all there are any conditions applicable to the particular report that you use. If you have a variant, that can also be used directly here and fetch the records. Now, coming back to split condition, as I said, DTB provides some default split, but you can always go ahead and create split. So split is very important in case of DTB configuration because it will help you to split the data. For example, when customer is having huge amount of data and they try to extract uh, a lot of millions of record together, there is a chance that that system might go into a performance related issue. So to overcome that, what DTV does is basically split the data. So now let's go back and see how you can add splits that can be used in your reports. So I go back to the screen. Now I come to the step which is project global data. And here we have the possibility to create our own split conditions as well. It's up to you whether you use the DTV provided split conditions. If those are enough, if those are not enough, you can create your own split parameters or your own project global data here. Now, as the name says project global data, actually, once you create a project global data here, with a definition, of course, that will be available for all the reports. That is the reason it has been kept separately, so that once you define, because company code, probably fiscal year, all this information will be used for multiple reports. So once you define the project global data here, and it can be used in the defined test specification area. So as I was telling, project global data will be used to split the data so that you may not get into any performance issue. Instead of collecting the data or extracting the data at one go, we are splitting the data. So one example I can give here. So for example, I have created this company code as a split parameter, and let's say there are two company codes here and I have given 1000 and 2000. So here I have taken the option between and. So while I use this split parameter in one of the report as a as an parameter, input parameter, and I try to extract, what will happen in the background is basically DTB will try to collect the data for 1000 and 2000 company code together. Of course, that will be more data if at all system is having more data. So it will have more data, which in that case, there is a chance that you may get into a performance issue. In that case, I would suggest instead of using this split parameter or the project global data, you design the project global data in this way, where we are using the option equals. Yeah, so equals 1000 and equals 2000. In this case, when I select the split parameter as CC 1000 to 2000, in this case, the data will be splitted and the data will be collected for 1000 and then 2000. In that way, it will not get into a performance issue. So that is how DDB basically helps in data splitting. And even when the data is used, DTB can still be used if you define your split parameter wisely. So that's how DTV helps here by helping the user to provide the global parameter in a separate place, and that can be used, reused, and also you can use split conditions there and fetch the data. Now coming back to defined test specification. So yeah. So I spoke about the split parameter, and also I spoke about the Z reports. And here, what I have done, for example, is there is one variant available for this particular Z report, so I have taken that. So likewise, you need to provide basically the parameters for each and every report, and also the tables if they are part of the validation scope. So this is basically nothing but the configuration of DTV or that we do in the test specification. Once test specification is done, we can go to simulation, and you can go to simulation directly from the test specification screen as well. Yeah, so in the simulation step, what we basically do is, if I go to the same report, for example, RF item GL. Yeah, so here we have the chance basically to run the simulation and check whether the parameters, whatever we have given, are working or not. If not, again, we can go back to test specification and correct those. So that is one thing. Second is it will also help you to understand uh, how if the system is getting into any performance issue, then you need to fine tune the test specification again. So this is like a playground, and this is not a mandatory step. Basically, it is an optional step, which means in during the initial cycles of the execution, initial phases, you can use it to understand the data, to understand how to split it. For example, once it is done, maybe in the final cutover, we can skip running the simulation, but simulation basically helps us to understand whatever input parameters that we have given in the test specification is working or not, and also if at all we are getting into any performance issue, how we can split it further. So that is what we try to do in the simulation. Now how we run the simulation, so here we just need to select the report, and if it is the source system, here we need to select basically the source system. And first we do the generate work item. First we click on generate work items, and this is where the splitting is actually happen. If we have chosen the split parameter, um, as as I said, equals to 1000, company code equals to 1000, keep company code equals to 2000, for example, the split will happen. And once the split is done, we can click on simulate, and during the simulation, the records will be fetched. So for this, I have already run the simulation, and you can see here that this many, some 223,238 records have been fetched for this particular report. Yeah, so this is what simulation does. It will help you to understand whether the input parameters are working or not, or you need to fine tune the test specification to get the optimum result. So not a mandatory step, but useful in the initial phases of the project, initial cycles of the project, to understand DTV basically, and to adjust the parameters. Yeah, so once done, then the next step is basically execute data extraction. And here what we can do is basically extract the records. We already did it in the simulation phase, so we also have the option that you import simulation results. If you're happy with the results what you got, so you can simply import the simulation results. So let me open the same report here. Yeah. So if I'm happy with the simulation results, then I can simply import the results from import simulation results. If I have not run the simulation and I want to run it freshly, then again I have to start here. So I will start with generate work item, which will split the data, which will apply the split conditions. Then I will run selected. So you can actually select multiple reports and all will run in parallelly. Everything is a job here, whether it is extraction, whether it is simulation, so this or it is evaluation, everything is a job. So it is important to maintain optimum job to run DTV efficiently during production cutover. So yeah, so this is what in the extraction phase we do. Either you import the results or you directly run it if you haven't. Yeah, so once the results are extracted, you can see it in the right hand side, the overview, the XML test specification, also the result data. If I click on, you can see the records that has been fetched for the source system. Yeah, so you can see the records has been fetched for the ECC system. Yeah, so now once these are done, the extractions are done for the source system. This is where the source system job for DTV is basically done. So I am using one system for this demo, but in real life we will have two system. Yeah. So once the extraction or the first snapshot of the data is taken in the source system, now the system conversion or the lean STT procedure will run, and the data will be moved from the source to the target system. So in case of system conversion, SUM takes care of it. SUM moves the DTV data, DTV tables, from the source system to the target system, and BTC, I think, takes care of moving the data from the source to the target system. So now once data reached to the target system and you can access the target system, all you need to do is basically come to the test specification again here. And if you want to check few few activities, such as maybe you need to create variant. If the variants are not available, the same variant, you may need to create it and put it for the target system this time. So you will select the report, and here you can see, and also you have to check the conditions. So in conditions, you have to make sure if you have given any condition. For example, if I go to RF item GL, if I have given some condition for ECC, then I make sure that same conditions are also maintained for S/4HANA system. Yeah, so same condition needs to be maintained to get the exact results, or the comparison doesn't make sense. So we make sure that the variants are intact if we have given any variants, and we also made sure that conditions are also matching with source and target. So once done, again, you are ready for simulation. If you have time, go for the simulation. If you do not have time, you can directly go to the extraction step. So here I came to the simulation, and I will maybe I can skip it since I already explained. Yeah, so I can directly come to execute data extraction if I am not running the simulation, but you can run it if you need. So here again, what we need to is basically again have the two options, which is import simulation result in case you have ran it. If you have not, again, you have the possibility to run it here. So again, select the report, and you should first generate work items, then run selected. Again, multiple reports you can do. And this is how we extract the record for the target system. So here at this moment, you can see that we have two sets of data. First is for the source system, and the second one is for the target system, which means now we are ready to run the evaluation, and we must do it for each and every reports and tables that we have basically that is there in your scope. So we did the extraction for all the reports. Now we can come to evaluate data. So data evaluation happen only in the target system. So we are coming to this step, for the first time. So again, you can go through the report, and we select the report, for example, and we can click on run selected. We have different other options available, such as rerun, reset if you want to rerun it, for example, and the data comparison of two sets of data, which is ECC and S/4HANA, will be done, and the result will be shown to you. So here I can go to the result. And here you can see that results are basically shown with four different parameters. The first one is the difference. If there are any difference between the records, that will be highlighted. And if it is matching exactly with each other, that will be equal. And also missing in target, here it means if there are any records which were available in the source but somehow missing in the target, that will also be shown. And in case of unexpected in target, what this meant is, if at all unexpectedly some extra records somehow appearing in the target system, but those were not available. So those were not available in the ECC system. So these are the four different parameters, and using this, basically the evaluation of the data happens in the DTV. So if I click on here, the data, so you can see the comparison, and DTV does a record by record comparison. So just let me open it. Yeah, so here you can see that it is doing a record by record comparison for ECC and S/4HANA. And if at all there are any discrepancy, those will be highlighted in the red. So maybe I can open one such example. Yeah, so here we see DTV is showing some differences. And if I click on data here, um, you can see that differences are highlighted in the red. So here, if you see for ECC, the revenue is showing some amount, whereas for S/4HANA, there are some discrepancy. Somehow the revenue is not appearing. So this is like a clear discrepancy, what the DTV will show to the end users. And however, DTV is not a reconciliation tool, which means it will find the discrepancies, but it will not tell you what is the solution for it, which means the user need to figure out what went wrong, and they may need to create a SAP ticket to understand, what went wrong during the conversion process or during the migration process. So this is how the data evaluation happens, and also towards the end, you will be presented with a summary report where you can find, all the reports that you evaluated or compare using DTV tool. So this is the end of the demo, and I can quickly switch to the slides again. Okay, so here are some of the statistics that I would like to call out. So, yeah, we have seen customers having 45 terabyte of data, and they have a vast test scope, and they had used successfully DTV. For example, source extraction took around close to 2 hours, and the target extraction and together with evaluation close to 3 hours. So, this was good, a remarkable achievement, and we have many customers who have used successfully DTV, and I can at least tell one of the recent customer who have used DTV successfully for lean SDD scenario, and they are now so happy with the validation that they are ready to delete the legacy system they were using before. So that is the kind of impact DTV is able to bring. We have multiple customers now who have used successfully DTV. So maybe I would like to read out a few comments here, feedbacks here. So DTV worked very well and provided us with high level of confidence and significant time savings. In summary, we can say that manually extracting and comparing the data would have taken significantly longer and would have greatly reduced our time buffer for the go live. So this is one of the customer feedback that we have taken, but we always get almost very good feedback, and this is very encouraging that it is adding value to customer during their validation, and being a very small tool, but being used in a very critical time of the project, and actually adding a lot of value during the process. Yeah, so that is about some customer statistics. So maybe I can briefly touch upon the roadmap of DTV. So we are coming with the next release of DTV happening in October. So the latest release, the latest and greatest now is DTV 1.7. So we are coming up with DTV 1.8 that will come in October. and we have some roadmap for that. So I think we will be able to release almost all of this that we are showcasing here. So which is auto propose, split parameters will be auto proposed. That is something we are working on, along with the advanced rules and filters, automatic data transfer, and version configuration, and also more intuitive summary screens. So these are some of the roadmap that we are planning to release in our next release, and we will be rolling out all this information in detail. So I think today's session is we are not explaining that in detail. However, once it is released, we will come with rollouts and blogs and if needed customer sessions, and please reach out to us in case you would like to know details about DTV 1.8 release, which will happen in October. Okay, so yeah, in the end, maybe I will leave you with different blogs and different learning journey that we have, and also some other artifacts like the DTV Central note, very important note to start working with DTV. So it will give you the information, the supported scenario, and where you can find the TCI that is needed to install DTV in the ECC, also in the S/4HANA system. And we also have this pre-delivered content report note, which helps, whenever we have new pre-delivered content delivered, we delivered through this note, and the XML attached to this note can be actually imported to TTV tool to get the newer version of pre-delivered content. Yeah, so these are some of the information I would like to share. And with that, I'm at the end of the presentation and ready for Q&A if there are any. I'll stop sharing now.
Thank you so much, Abhay, for taking us through the presentation. I think there is one question that comes to mind, which is there a particular kind of customer who would benefit the most from using the tool, or is it relevant for all customers who are making the transition?
I would say each and every customer, because it's like a rule, or it's kind of custom that every customer who are going through a transition, they do validation. This is like part of the project that they have to run the validation. No customer goes without uh, doing validation. They don't go live without validation. So I would say it is kind of mandatory for every customer. They do it either using SAP tools. Sometimes they hire third party consultants to do the validation. But validation is something very is like mandatory for each and every transition projects, I would say. And DDV can support at least now many kind of transition scenarios, as I mentioned, starting from system conversion, lean STT, and also S/4HANA upgrades. Yeah.
Okay. I think that's probably the only question that I had in mind. You already
Mhm.
said that this is free of cost and any customer can actually
Yes.
use this.
Yeah, it
Uh,
is free of cost, which means if you have SAP standard license, basically you are ready to use DTV. So simply the TCI installation, TCI SAP Note based installation, which takes just minutes. All you need to do, or the customer need to do, is basically they need to find their system information, which system version they are. They can find it from the system sources, and once that is done, they can find the TCI from the DTV Central note. They can download that and install. Yeah, that
super cool. I think
is.
thank you so much for taking us through the presentation and for your time and insights.
Thank you
And
so much
thanks,
for
Tina,
having me.
for helping us put this together.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Um,